all these rejections from the middle Bollinger Band.
Resistance we're going to need.
If you actually see here, we get a
And we'll look for a healthy higher
I
low.
would not
don't have
be
the
convinced
bullback
to
to
enter
cross
long
trade.
trade.
Hello crypto friends, hope you're doing fantastic this wonderful Wednesday, and we are going to be looking at Bitcoin Ethereum Litecoin BCH. We're going to check out the ETH BTC pairing to see how they compare to each other, and then we'll end it with some story time. I made some wild claims about my breaking up dogfights abilities and raised a lot of questions, so we'll go into a little bit of story time. So looking at Bitcoin first, still rejecting from the daily exponential resistance, the 12 period, 3 days in a row rejecting the price. And really the past 2 days since I put out the last video, it's showing us that this market is currently a news-driven market. There's not a ton of new retail money coming in. We certainly know that. That hasn't been the case in a long time. And in that instance, the news has a lot more weight to it. It reacts, it affects the price a lot more significantly. So we get bearish news that Bithumb was hacked, and we see a dump. And then we see bullish news today that Tether went through an audit and passed it, and we saw a spike. Now, something I want to point out about that Tether news is, I'm just going to read what one of our members said because I can't say it much better, but it's not an external audit or audit of any kind, just a law firm confirming the account balance of their client. One of the partners of that law firm, Eugene R. Sullivan, is a member of the advisory board of one of Tether's banks. Good news, but you definitely have to take it with a grain of salt. So I don't have a ton of fundamental beliefs on USDT. All I know is that Tether is too risky for me to have any dealings in. I don't trust it. And, you know, I haven't done a ton of research to establish that point. I've done enough research to say, all right, I'm not going to keep wasting my time researching this because I'm not going to get the answers I'm looking for that will make me comfortable putting any significant capital at risk in Tether. So that's where we stand. Everybody has their own opinions. And again, that's just the reason for the bullish news. But essentially, we have the bearish news and the bullish news giving us a really nice 4-hour pattern where we have an equilibrium. So I don't often put uptrend lines on my charts, but here we have a really nice one to be watching on the 4-hour time frame. So we have our low of the dump. This is our low of the hack bear news. And here's the high of our bullish reaction. So it's an equilibrium where we have our high of the bounce on the daily chart. Low after the bear news, high after the bull news is just about a double top. It was a lower high. And overnight tonight, we're going to be looking for a higher low to form and a continued tightening 4-hour range. If we see a bear break of this 4-hour equilibrium, we're going to be looking down at support of 63.85. And if we see a bull break, I'm looking up at 69.14 and then 7,000 psychological resistance after that. So a clear upper wick of profit taking. And again, just the entire range in the last 24 hours since the last video has been marked by a bear news reaction and a bull news reaction. And again, have to give props to our members posting these articles right when they come out and giving some opportunity to act on them. So nice equilibrium pattern. That's nice and comfortable. We're used to that. Happens all the time. And we'll just patiently wait for a break in that pattern. Otherwise, if you are already in positions, if you are bearish, you're probably going to stop out if we get a bull break. And if you are bullish, you're probably going to stop out if we get a bear break. So I will keep an eye on this uptrend line because that's a nice general guide on if we continue to hold this line, the bulls will continue to have the possibility to get over the 12-period exponential resistance on the daily. If we lose this level, the odds that we do that are a lot less likely. So I give my longer-term perspective yesterday in the video in terms of what is needed for the daily trend to change. And again, we're not anywhere near doing that. I need to see a clear lower high compared to 77.77, and then I need to see a clear daily higher low and higher high to change the trend. Right now, this is still a bounce. And honestly, you could call this a bear flag, and I wouldn't argue with you too much where that would be the channel, you know, an all-out dump and a fairly weak bounce. And if we do see this 4-hour equilibrium break bearish, we'll be looking down at the low of this channel. So definitely something I'm keeping an eye on, and I am still cautious and protective and skeptical of bulls until they prove it to me. I need proof, and the past couple of days has been showing me that we need bullish news. We need bullish news to incite buyers back into this market, and patiently waiting. So Ethereum on the daily time frame is over its 12-period exponential resistance, but that's happened in the past because Ethereum multiple times has had a bit more bullish reaction than Bitcoin has. So we have gotten over that exponential resistance, but not the 26 period. So that's one to be watching. But it's the same thing on the 4-hour time frame, where we have a nice equilibrium forming. Didn't get quite as close to a bull break on this 4-hour time frame, so it's a clear lower high. We're looking for a higher low compared to 516.67, and our new resistance is 541.80. So just a nice tightening range, should tighten into tonight, and we will look for a break of this tightening range probably into tomorrow. And if there's no volume and no news, this pattern could go into tomorrow night or potentially into Friday. So very clear pattern to be watching in the short term. Daily chart has a lot of proving to do for the bulls. If we get a bear break of this 4-hour equilibrium pattern, Ethereum has a lot more space to work with in terms of where we could pull back to and still maintain a higher low on this daily time frame. So keep that in mind. The last higher low I would consider for Ethereum down at 481 in the 481s, and for Bitcoin, the last higher low I would be looking down at, there's some space here as well, 63.30. So those are the key daily levels that must hold, but obviously if we lose the shorter term 4-hour higher lows, that will be a red flag due to the overall downtrend that we are currently in on the daily charts. So comparing these two, Ethereum and Bitcoin, this is the weekly time frame, and it's giving us, you guessed it, an equilibrium. High, low, lower high, higher low, lower high, higher low, and now we're very tight. So we spent the last 5 weeks within this tight weekly range, and not only do we have a long-term weekly equilibrium that's been playing out since June 2017, so a year now this has been playing out, but the daily chart is in an equilibrium as well. And we can put even more levels on here to be watching. Resistance, support, and we're close to a bull break. 8086 has to break for the bulls, and 7225 would have to break for the bears. So right now Ethereum has an advantage. We're closer to a bull break than a bear break. If we get this bull break on the daily time frame and then follow through and break 8581, that would be very notable for this longer term move. And I do believe that we will see bull breaks here. I'm not going to act on that, but I will wait for the break. But I do believe we will get a bull break because I do believe that Ethereum's futures are coming. And when that news comes out, I do believe that Ethereum is going to see a pump in volume and distance itself from BTC a little bit. In terms of, market cap flipping or anything like that, I'm not going to look that far ahead. Let's just stick to the short term, a few weeks at a time. Who knows when futures will come? But if they do, I do believe that that would be a fundamental reason that we could get a break of this range. But we're so tight on the daily time frame, we're likely going to get a daily break of this tight range before any kind of news like that would come out. So the daily break is going to give us a short-term signal. Then we're going to see if that short-term signal follows through into the weekly signal. And again, those weekly levels for me, key support is 71.41 and resistance is 85.81. So we will break the daily level before we break the weekly levels, have to ensure we get the follow through to break those weekly levels as well. Litecoin, Charlie Lee was just on CNBC, didn't really do anything for the price, but we have a very tight pattern. We never broke the high of the bounce like we did on all the other names. That's another reason, another way that Litecoin is showing us it's one of the weaker names comparatively. But we have our low, high of the bounce, higher low, lower high. Bulls are trying to form a higher low right now at 95.51. Not confident just yet that that is our higher low. I need to see more follow through on, well, actually we can call that. I'm going to go ahead and say that that is our higher low. So the range on the daily time frame right now, 95.51 support, 101.65 resistance. 4-hour time frame, we have an equilibrium here as well, but it's an equilibrium within a tightening daily range, whereas Ethereum and Bitcoin are in an equilibrium outside of the daily tightening range after making their bull break. So we'll look for a higher low to form tonight compared to 95.59. Definitely still weak. And watch Litecoin, because if you are trading bull and bearish, either or, this is the kind of pattern that you have a trade game plan established for both. So if I see a tight pattern like this, and let's clear up these lines a little bit just so we can see what's going on in here. But I would say to myself, if we break 95.51, I can establish a short-term position and I'll put my stop loss here, however much you want to risk, or wherever maybe a 4-hour resistance level is, you would put a stop loss if that resistance level breaks. Or if we get a bull break, you make a bullish entry and you put a stop loss on a 4-hour higher low of support. So that's a scenario where, if I were here and I were focused and saying, all right, I'm going to patiently wait for this trade setup, I would have a pen and paper next to my computer. I would write down, if XYZ breaks, then I do this. If ZYX breaks, then I do this. And I just have it set there, and I patiently wait for the break, and then I act on my trade game plan, whatever way the direction breaks. And that's why I like tightening patterns so much in stocks. When it breaks in one direction or the other, you can play it either way. And that's my favorite. You know, we posted something recently, and people always say, when I post a tightening pattern, people who are less familiar with technical analysis, they always say, well, which way is it going to break? And the people that know what they're talking about say, yep, I got an order ready for each. So it doesn't matter which way it breaks. We play it with whichever way it breaks. No need to try and predict which direction it's going to break. Wait for the signal and then act on it. And again, if you traded only equilibrium patterns in the stock market and you could be disciplined enough to only do that, you would have a winning percentage as a trader. As long as you had some decent trade management and you use stop losses. BCH USD, daily time frame. So we're pulling back, rejecting from daily exponential, 12-period resistance. Anything above 825 is a higher low on the daily, and the 4-hour time frame is giving us an equilibrium. High of the move, low of consolidation, lower high, and we're looking for a higher low. So the range right now, 862.77 is support. The bulls need a higher low compared to that level. We just set a lower high at 905 resistance. Looking for this range to tighten into tonight. Looking for a break likely tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then tomorrow night or Thursday early morning. So that's where we stand on the big four. Daily time frame still in a bearish downtrend, still rejecting from exponential resistances. 4-hour equilibrium is the pattern to watch. And again, in these videos, sometimes the hourly chart, when there's more volatility, the hourly chart is where I like to set up the best. When there's less volatility, the 4-hour time frame, sometimes it's just the daily time frame, but there's always a time frame that has the most clear setup to me in terms of, okay, I'm watching this time frame into tonight, and that's going to tell me the direction and some key levels. So it's 4-hour time frame for tonight. So I appreciate you watching. I hope you all continue to do good things. So in yesterday's video, I said that my skills in life are technical analysis and trading, organic farming, rock hopping on rivers, napping, and breaking up dogfights. So the best example of breaking up dogfights, it's happened literally over a half dozen times in my life, whether it was on the farm where we had dogs or just out. You know, I can remember I was traveling through El Paso, Texas, and just a big dog was attacking a little dog and just getting in between them. But the best story was when I was 4 years ago, I was in Costa Rica in Pavones. If you have the chance to go to Pavones, Costa Rica, it's literally heaven on earth. But this was a little shack that we lived in. It was the sand castle, literally 100 feet from the beach in the middle of the jungle. The monkeys would climb through the yards. You had papaya and all these fruits growing in the front yard. And it's just all open air. Had a scorpion in my bedroom that I couldn't get rid of. Had to sleep with that for a couple nights. But if you don't mind roughing it, it's a beautiful place. And there's all dirt roads. It takes like a 6-hour bus ride to get there. It's known for its longest left to right breaking wave, the second longest in the world. So it's just perfect surfing conditions literally every single day. It's not a question of are there going to be a good waves? It's just you have to time it with the tide twice a day. So the only people that go there, there's yoga retreats and there's surfers. And I do believe that they're building a resort now, which is unfortunate. But the fact that it was all dirt roads, you don't get tourists. So it's just the locals that live there, surfers, and yoga people that are willing to rough it and take a 6-hour really bumpy bus ride to get to this spot. So lived here for a couple months, and conveniently it was the best trading I've ever done in my life because it was right, I was there for 2 months, but it was right in the middle of the USMJ boom in spring, actually around March 2014. So just huge gains, and talk about living in paradise and clicking buttons and manifesting money. But what ended up happening is I was there through a friend of a friend of a coworker of a friend to just watch some dogs. And our job was to take them out on the beach. That's Cowboy. Cowboy's God is ball. That's all he cares about. And just go on the beach and throw him that ball and he'll go get it and bring it back. So we were dog sitting these dogs. And this is Cowboy and his light up ball that we got. Bola de Luz. And it was Baloo. This is Baloo on the beach. And so one day we were just at the beach, walking them around, throwing the ball. We were in the water, my buddy and I, and they were on the beach doing their thing. And these 4 dogs that looked like they came off of a Siberian mountain just walked out of the woods. And I'm very in tune with animals and body language and energetics. and there were no red flags whatsoever. They were just walking up, and our dogs were fine with the interaction. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, one of the dogs, within literally 5 seconds, and you can see that Baloo's a big girl, but had Baloo on her back and had her jaws around her neck. And without even thinking, just instantly, as fast as I could, sprinted up to this dog and just laid into it with all of my body weight and tackled it to the ground. And of course, it wasn't expecting me, so it just yelped. And I ended up nailing my knee right into the back of its hindquarters. And I definitely, injured its muscle or whatever. So it ended up on the ground, yelped, and started limping away. And so instantly we stand up, and the first thing that I do with Baloo is, stop Baloo from going back after these dogs and getting back into it. And then my buddy says, "Heads up, Dan." And I look up, and literally surrounded in a circle by all these dogs. And it was just this Western Mexican standoff where for a moment there, I thought I was about to have to, have a battle royale with these 4 giant dogs. And fortunately, they just wandered off and followed their limping comrade over to the other side of the beach. And I definitely felt terrible for hurting the dog, but it literally had its mouth around Baloo's throat. So I honestly didn't even think about it. It was just a complete instinct reaction. And I did see the dog a couple days later, and it was less of a limp. So I don't think I broke any bones or anything, which was good. But just instances where dogs, I worked on a farm, and we had 2 female dogs, shepherds, and they would try and herd me when I would run, but they were unneutered, and they would just have these battles where they would not adhere to their established dominance. So one of them would try and herd the other one the entire day, just standing on its hindquarters and following it everywhere. And they would just get into it and draw blood and get, really intense with each other. And so literally I can remember having each of them in a headlock and trying to break them up by myself out in the middle of the woods as they were literally going for blood against each other. And fortunately, I've never had a dog where it's turned on me. I've established enough dominance, and I think my experience becoming an alpha goat for the last 2-3 years definitely helped with that. But it's definitely a high intensity adrenaline kind of thing, but I enjoy it. And so if you ever have any dog fights you need broken up, let me know. So I appreciate you watching. We'll check back in tomorrow and see how these 4-hour equilibriums break. Canadian MJ on fire, all-time highs. Canada is now officially legal. We knew it was going to happen, but the vote is now official. There's WEED. This is the weekly chart for WEED. Equilibriums? Well, this has been an easy one. High, low, lower high, higher low. Bull break occurred at 34.55, and here we are pushing 45. Easy 25, 28%, and we're looking for a gap up and continuation tomorrow. Huge bull volume and swing trading large positions because of the hype and the follow through. And it was just a buying fest at the end of the day today. Lots of fun, keeping me busy when cryptocurrency has been boring. And continue to learn those skills and get yourself in positions to learn other markets, because again, USMJ is going to do this. This is Canadian MJ. Low back in 2015, less than 3 years ago, we were at $1.15, and here we are up at 45. So 4,000% gains. This is going to happen in USMJ. So just prepare for the opportunity, accrue capital, and we'll be here to do it all with you. So thanks again. We'll see you tomorrow.